28 Weeks Later. It's a 2007 horror film that's indeed the sequel to 28 Days Later. This movie is not directed by Danny Boyle. This time he's an executive producer to it. So there's that. But the plot of this movie is probably fairly simple, judging from the title. It's been 28 weeks later since the event of the first film, where this rage virus broke out in England and it damn near killed everyone. But now the US military has come in and they've helped clean up the streets. They're trying to bring citizens back into the country, and just as everything should be okay, the virus somehow, some way, makes its way back. Now, what I think of 28 Weeks Later is, I like this movie. I do. I'll admit, in comparison to the first film, it's nowhere near as good. And I've seen some people say that it's just flat out not good. And I guess I understand that, but still, I have fun with it. I think there are some decent things in here. Let's talk about how this movie begins, because I do think that beginning scene is the best part of the film, where you see this married couple, and they're shacked up in this house with this old couple and a bunch of other people trying to survive, although they don't exactly know what's going on yet. This little kid comes to their house, and then that's when the infected break in. And it's chaos, it's mayhem, people dying left and right. Now the husband and the wife and the kid make their way upstairs, and there's a moment where the wife is across the room and the husband's by one of the bathroom doorways, and an infected person breaks its way in. And she calls his name. There's a moment where he could at least try to attack the infected person, to beat him down, to at least create enough time for her to come to him so they both can escape. But no, he closes the door and climbs out of the window. What a fucking asshole. I mean, from that point on, when you see him make his way out of the house and he's running, he looks back and he sees his wife at the window, she gets grabbed, and he just keeps running. You just can't help but say, fuck you, dude. It's so messed up. I'm not saying he doesn't feel bad about it. But then, 28 weeks later, where he meets up with his kids, and he tells them this lie of a story about how there was nothing he could do, how he watched his wife die, their mother, and him breaking down and crying during the story. It's even worse, because you're like, fuck, he's a good liar. And you almost feel bad for the guy, except we know the truth. And yeah, there's no redemption from that. Now, his kids, the little girl is played by Imogen Poots, I think is how you say her name, and her little brother. I like these two characters, sure. There's not a whole lot to them at all. There's barely anything fleshed out as far as their actual characters go, but I just like the idea of a brother and sister, the sister being older, desperately trying to protect her little brother. In a situation like this, I think that's enough for me to cling with them and want them to make it. But that's also where we get to some of the American characters. Rose Byrne, who actually isn't American in real life, which is funny, but she's with the military, and when she finds out, because eventually they find their mother, she's somehow still alive, and when the military brings her in and cleans her down, and they notice that she's in fact bit. But Rose Byrne finds out that this woman is immune to the virus, in a sense. I mean, she still has the virus in her blood. She's a carrier, but she just doesn't show any effects of it. And when the chaos happens, when hell breaks loose, I like that Rose Byrne instantly thinks of the kids. She instantly thinks that they could have some of this immunity blood in them. And if they do, then they're vital to stay alive. They're very important. They have to make it through all of this because they could be the key to a vaccine, to a cure. I like that she's willing to risk her life to make sure these kids make it. That, even though there's not more than that to her character, that's enough for me to like her. Same thing with Jeremy Renner, who plays a military soldier. And he's there to basically make sure things go okay. But when things don't go alright, when it's chaos and people are running through the streets and out of the building, at first he's supposed to target infected people, but then he gets told to just kill everyone. And he can't accept that. He says, I just can't do it. He makes his way to ground level and, again, sacrifices himself to protect these two kids. And that made me really like his character. Him and Rose Byrne, I liked them so much that it sucked to see what happened to them eventually. Idris Elba, speaking of an actor he's actually British in real life, but he's playing an American. Funny. He is a general of the military, and he's so cold, he's so stern, he's so stuck in his ways. He's like, look, when this happens, we kill everybody. We make sure this virus doesn't make it out of the country, across the world. You obviously understand that, but I feel like this movie's trying to say something about the US government, trying to say that we're assholes, and that we're willing to kill millions to save billions, and who knows what's right and wrong, but I do wish he was in the movie more. I do like the idea of there being an immunity. I think that's interesting, that's different. It's definitely something I wasn't expecting when I saw this. And I also think, again, it makes the brother and sister a little bit more special than they otherwise would have been. Now, the scene when the father finds out that his wife is still alive and he goes to see her, and sure, she's strapped down on this post, but the fact that there's no guards securing the doorway where she is almost laughable. But he makes his way in, and he kisses her. He's apologetic. And of course, he instantly gets infected and just like rips her face off out of rage. It's intense, that scene, and it's sad. And there's a creepy scene where the little boy is stuck in this corridor room. It's pitch black. There's a bunch of people in there because the military won't let them out of the building. And the father breaks his way in and just starts attacking people left and right. So then more and more people start getting infected, and it's just chaos. You can't really tell what's going on because it's pitch black. Now, the father being infected, I do think they did some weird things with it. There's a couple of scenes where the group is going through the city trying to survive snipers, and eventually when the military starts bombing the streets, the father, while being infected, is almost following them and stalking them and just quietly watching them. And it's a little creepy, but you just don't understand why he's doing that, how he's doing that. Is he thinking? Is he calculating? Is he planning on how to kill his kids? Because every other time we've seen somebody get infected with the rage virus, they don't think. They're just full of rage, and they're angry, and they just want to destroy everything. So, sure, you could say, well, this movie, we're in the father's point of view for a good amount of times, and we never really were with an infected person's point of view before. So you could say maybe we just didn't know enough about the virus. Okay, but still, it's a little confusing, especially when the streets get bombed, and the father knows enough to hide in one of the tunnel corners to avoid the fire, avoid from being burnt. It just was like, wow. Okay. Now, this virus, I swear, not only does it spread so fast, but the fact that these infected people run, and they're so quick, it's like, alright, if this ever happened, we're fucked. There's no way we're surviving a virus like that. And that brings me to the ending, where I don't want to completely spoil it, but I'll just say this. The downbeat, depressing ending, basically, where you see in Paris, this virus has gotten that far. It's crazy. I'm not the biggest fan of downbeat, depressing endings. I like the ending of the first movie more, but I get what they were going for. This is probably the most realistic ending if a situation like this really happened. I don't dislike 28 Weeks Later. I like more things in it than not. I do understand if some people don't care for it though, especially in comparison to the first film, but again, I like it. So guys, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of 28 Weeks Later? Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Later!